is an introductory course to information systems. Basically, we try to teach students basic frameworks and concepts to help them think about business problems and how to use technology to solve them. Usually, it is in a classroom of 70 at Q319, which is a beautiful parliament setting room where group work is very convenient. But this semester, it was put in the pit. Notoriously speaking, you may have heard of it. You might have been there with fixed chair, flip desk, and more seats than students. 3 entrances, super dark, 2-story tall, and this is exactly me every class. I'm not going to last very long in an actual arena, so I prefer the pit to But as part of the Carson College of Business, we try to deliver the experience of active learning to students besides course materials, because we believe that when we involve students in doing things and actually thinking about the things that they're doing, they learn better, they retain information better. So examples of active learning include debate, simulations, guided design, things like that. And when you hear about those, you usually think of this, right? Group setting, people can face each other and talk. What I have, on the other hand, is this, something worse than this. So it is really hard to manage any active learning. So basically, I try to come up with something to survive the semester with the delivery of active learning to students. So this is nothing academic, it's just something that I came up with to help me organize my thoughts. So I feel like there are 3 important things to deliver the classroom experience. There are course policies or syllabus. There are student norms, how they behave in the classroom. There are lecture plan or my behavior in that room, basically. And with policies alone and student norms, you are expecting them to cope, right? Do whatever the syllabus say just to get a grade. If student norms and lecturer, instructor alone, you hope that they like you and then behave the way you want. With policy and my behavior alone, I will be policing my students all the time, and I don't want that. So the intersection of all 3, I think, is where active learning can happen. So this will be my framework to share some things that I've done in my class moving forward. So, for example, the first thing I think a prerequisite for active learning is I need students to show up in the first place to do anything at all. So to have them to show up, I counted on them wanting to pass the class. And my policy involved giving exams that cover both textbook materials that they can read at home, but at the same time, I deliver things that are not in the textbook and they can only get when they show up. And there's no makeup for that, no notes provided. And material is not in the textbook. To combine with that, what I use is, I think, align a lot with what Lisa just shared. I whiteboard on an iPad screen that I share to the projector in the room through Zoom. That also liberated me from sticking to the podium, and I can walk around the pit with that setup. Just a clarification for the strict no makeup policy. What I accommodate still is following, I think it blocked the view, but Regulation 72 about university sanction excuse absence, right? So I do accommodate for that in my policy. Thank you so much. So if I got students to show up, what I do next is to try to help them focus and take notes. So if you added bullet points in red, I expect them to be easily distracted for students these days and their electronic device. So part of my policy is a strict electronic ban. I required them to take note with paper and pen during my lecture time. And I stop my lecture and I call out people who does not conform with the regulations. And because I count on their norm to be cooperative and conform with their peers, and especially a room of more than 100 students work in my favor for that. So someone on their phone would have 99 students staring at them, waiting for them to put it away so I can resume my lectures. So that's been working pretty well. To be honest, it was uncomfortable for me to do that. The awkward silence is hard to bear with, but so far it's been delivering. And after a few lectures like that, students learn that I will do that, and it deterred them from using electronics when I don't want them to. To Lisa's point, note taking must be done in handwriting because I teach a lot of frameworks that I also draw on my whiteboard. And that go hand in hand with the policy of banning electronic as well. I communicated with them that typing on a Word document doesn't get them there. because it's hard to draw anything on a Word file to begin with. So they kind of sync together to help them focus and take notes. Next is how to maintain the focus, because they can focus for like 10 minutes top. And I had observers in my classroom noticing that actual attention dwindle after about 10 minutes. So I tried to chunk my lectures into 10 minutes chunks. And then after that chunk, I will switch to activity. And after about 10, 15 minutes of activity, I will switch back to another chunk of mini lectures. And I keep alternating like that for the whole 75 minutes of class that I have. Activities, however, involve the use of electronics. And this is something that I was really concerned about before the semester started, because of the alternating, right? I basically will have students put away the device, pull it out, put it away, and then put it back out. But so far, they have been really cooperative with that, and everybody pretty much complied. When I asked them, oh, now this is time for notebook and pen, and they would just make a lot of noises, right? But putting the device away. And I give them positive feedback, like, that's the noise I want to hear. And yeah, thank you for doing that. Yeah. So this has been helpful in maintaining the focus as well. Basically, I'm meeting where my students are because of their short attention span these days. Yeah. But some people, I'm aware, some of my colleagues think differently, right? We need to help them extend their attention span, but that's a different story. Now, the last part is I have them there, have their attention and focus. Now I just need to get them engaged in the activity that I give them. So for me, because the room has more seats than I have students, 300 seats plus, and while I have 123 students. So what I had to do was to nudge them to sit in the front rows. And I have a floor plan to show you after this slide. I did that with the help of some signs I printed out. Do not sit on this row, and I put it all the way at the back rows. So students, when they walk in, they can see where they're not supposed to sit. And then they came down to the front rows closer to me, meaning that they are also closer to one another to do some group work. So that's how I facilitated it, and still counting on their cooperation and conformity with their peers. Sometimes for the first 3 or 5 classes, I would have some student preceptors in there as well who will stand on the aisle and help guide the student down, because some students are quite clueless. They don't feel like, they don't like the feeling of being awkward, standing there finding where to sit, so they just sit anywhere. And I have my preceptors to help with that. So for the engagement in activities, my reward system is for participation. So they always have to do something in order to get the grades, just not showing up and sitting there, disengaging. And again, there's no makeup for those activities that happen strictly in class. And for the activities to be engaging for them, and especially in the lecture hall, I have to do it in pairs instead of group bigger than 2. What I realized, and thanks a lot to the observers in my lectures, doing it in pairs kind of keeps students accountable. So if one student doesn't say a word, right, the other will just stare at them. But if there are 3 or more, then there will be someone talking and someone can sit back and relax and wait to get the grades. So pairs, I think, is crucial for lecture hall. And because the fixed chair, flip table, they can't really turn around anyway. So people sitting side by side do it easier than bigger groups. And in the design of the activities, I always have them report whom they're working with for that day. Sometimes when the activity is like a case study, right, call for specialties, like major related specialties, I will ask them to base their answers on the majors. And sometimes I just randomly go in and check if they really are reporting in pairs that goes together or not. So that is another way that I facilitate the engagement in the actual activities. And because of the class size, all of them have to be computer mediated, hence the use of electronics for the activities, because collecting papers and grading all of them would definitely kill me for the semester. Yes, again, this is the last point. Activities demand input from 2 students. So that is like a nudge for them to work together. Some things that I realized on top of those, number one is instructor movement and proximity really helps. So as high or as tall as the pit is 2-story, I try to climb up and down. When they are having group activities, try to pry into what the groups are talking about. Although admittedly, it is very uncomfortable for me to do. Observers I found to be a valuable resource. They can cover the blind spots and tell me which worked, which didn't. And I would strongly recommend the poesy program from the Washington State, the peer observation program that paired me with some of the partners. We co-observe and give each other feedback about teaching, and that tremendously helped. At some point, inevitable, right? It is inevitable to lose some engagement. So toward the end of the semester, around the break, my 100 students who show up reduced to like 60 or something. So that's just a fact that I have to accept. So this is an example of the slide that I always show consistently before class for about 5 weeks straight, to ask them to go fill the first row. And this is an example of the makeup policy and the languages that I use to accommodate for some medical reasons, right? Like they can have 2 lowest points drop, no question asked. And outside of that, it is their choice. If they miss more than 2 weeks, it is the lost point that they don't have any makeup for. So that would be everything. Thank you so much. And I would love to have your feedback.